Being a younger bloke in the 1990s was tough. When I wasn't persistently being chased by bigger blokes or wanting to clean the local lavvies with my head, at least I had professional wrestling. Yes indeed, the mid to late 90s was a great time to be a fan of blokes and birds in pants grappling with each other until one submitted. Kinda reminds me of my last divorce. In any case, WCW and the WWF were hotter than one of my Uncle Barry's chicken booners, and I, like many others, was on this ride right from the start to its explosive peak and beyond. With the advent of the Jerry Springer Show, both brands were primarily focused more on adult-orientated storylines, which would go on to rival the likes of EastEnders and Emmerdale Farm. Yes indeed, the World Wrestling Federation had the likes of Stone Cold Steve Austin, the blue-collar everyman duffing up his boss Mr McMahon every week, the Undertaker's Ministry of Darkness, a pimp, a porn star, a bloke in gold rubbing himself down, and a huge bloke called Sexual Chocolate, to name but a few. Yes, blokes and birds, we threw away our subscriptions to the pap that was playing on terrestrial TV and ventured into the land of Sky Sports, where millions of unemployed blokes and birds would watch the men and women of the World Wrestling Federation have a bit of a wrestle, yell into the microphones and then head to the nearest boozer for a cheeky pint. Now, as a little kid, I got to play a few wrestling-based video games, such as Super WrestleMania on the SNES, and later I would buy WWF Warzone for the PlayStation 1, which I have nothing but fond memories of. It's the first wrestling game I became seriously addicted to. I mean, it had photorealistic wrestlers, motion captured moves, taunts, and even grudge match videos filmed especially for the game. I would rack up countless hours winning the coveted WWF title and then seeing how long I could defend it for, as the game let you carry on endlessly and would throw in regular matches and occasional cage or weapons matches to mix things up. I remember losing it once. I don't know, for some reason I'd come home from my job and I just couldn't see it. I couldn't remember where in the house I'd left it. It turned out I was so addicted to this game that there it was laying on top of the TV. It took me 5 hours to find it, and that's where it was all along. I hadn't even remembered that I put it there after a marathon gaming session the night before. After playing WWF Warzone to death, I seriously wanted more WWF action, and about a year later I would get my wish. Acclaim Salt Lake City, or Iguana West as they were renamed then, who developed Warzone, released a sequel called WWF Attitude. Now, as you can imagine, I was so excited for this game. I pored over screenshots and read about the new enhancements the game is going to have, such as more wrestlers, full entrances this time round, an expanded career mode, match types, and even an option to create your own pay-per-view. The game blew me away when I got it, especially because I was a massive fan of Gangrel, and having seen his entrance faithfully recreated on the PlayStation 1 was extremely mind-blowing to me. It felt like a proper WWF experience, and I was so into that I even got the N64 version as well. Maybe it was nostalgia, but somehow I'd lost my copy of Attitude on the PS1 when I moved out of home, and remembered just how much fun I had on it back on the day. I wanted to see if the game would still blow my mind today. According to reviews I read on the internet, people also really loved this game and have a lot of fondness for it, particularly the expanded creative wrestler mode and the different ways you could play this gem. It's really refreshing to hear that it's held in such high esteem after all these years, as after Acclaim lost the WWF license after releasing Attitude, the new license holders were now Japanese developers Yuke's, and they released WWF SmackDown, which played way more differently and had a season mode with little cutscenes, storylines, faster gameplay, and again, after playing that I had no reason to go back to Attitude, as good as that game was. So in many ways I kind of want to go back and give Attitude some much needed attention and love. It would be easy to compare this to later WWF, WWE games and talk about how Attitude is lacking in this area or that, but that would be really unfair. I know it's probably not what a lot of people want to hear, but I don't like saying which game is better when it comes to video games unless they are virtually devoid of playability or control. To me, WWF Attitude has its strengths and weaknesses, but I'm really sure if we dig deep enough we could do the same with any of Yuke's SmackDown games or even some of the WWE games that are out today. I guess what I'm trying to say is I just want to review Attitude on its own terms, as there is a ton of stuff here to look at, and if you were a fan of WWF or WE as it was back in the day, So for WWF Attitude, this time Acclaim decided to go all out and eclipse their previous game Warzone, packing the game with over 40 wrestlers, authentic wrestler entrances, music and signature taunts, a much longer single player career, 20 game modes and exhibition matches where you can go head to head with a CPU or invite a few of your mates around and give each other a good kicking. Acclaim have packed a lot onto this CD, and right from the start it really shows how committed they were when it came to providing a ton of options for WWF fans. So we're going to take a dive into the world of WWF Attitude and first explore the brand new features the gameplay has. We'll look at the controls and the various modes you can partake in, and then I'll take you through the new and expanded career mode. Starting up the game gives us a ton of ways to play Attitude. We have a versus mode, tag team mode, 2-on-1, 3-on-1, a tornado tag, and this is where all 4 wrestlers are in the ring at once and no tags are necessary. Lumberjack matches allow 2 blokes to bash the heck out of each other whilst 2 CPU controlled wrestlers wait outside the ring and can cause problems by attacking your chosen grappler when they're outside the ring. There's 2 types of gauntlet modes, one where a single wrestler must face off against a team of 4 wrestlers, and the tag team gauntlet where a team must defeat 4 other tag teams, one after the other, to become victorious. There's Survivor Series, and this is a 4-on-4 tag team elimination match where the winner is the team who eliminates all the opponents. The Royal Rumble is the 30-man free-for-all event where 4 grapplers start off in the ring. There are no pinfalls or submissions as we know in this one, and the only way to eliminate a superstar is by throwing them over the top rope. Each time a wrestler is eliminated, another one enters the ring, and this carries on until there's just one man standing. What's great is that you can choose to have 30 or less depending on your preference, so you can just have a mini rumble if you like. There's a Battle Royal which works typically like the Royal Rumble, except there are only 4 wrestlers, and once again elimination occurs when 3 have been thrown over the top rope and there is only 1 remaining. War matches are pretty much the same, with 4 players pitted against each other, with the added difference that once a grappler has been pinned or made to submit, then he remains outside of the ring and can interfere with the rest of the match by cheap-shotting opponents and pulling them out the ring. Stable matches are pretty much the same as war matches, with the last wrestler being allowed to go outside and beat up the other fighters outside of the ring. We have triangle matches, which are essentially a triple threat elimination match where a wrestler wins by eliminating both of his opponents. Then we have, to confuse you even more, a triple threat match. Now these are just basic matches where winning comes from making one or the other opponent submit or by pinfall. It's that simple. Steel cage matches make a welcome return and are a lot of fun. You win when you have beaten your opponent senseless and are then able to climb out of the cage. There are weapons matches, and they add a lot of spice and action where wrestlers can use various items lying around to inflict maximum damage on their opponents. Incidentally, you can choose to turn weapons on and off during various modes to add some extra fun and challenge to your gameplay. You can even set up a King of the Ring tournament here where 8 wrestlers compete, with losers being eliminated and the winners advancing to the next round. This continues until all 7 have been eliminated and there's only 1 player left. I have to say, I absolutely love this option, and it was a great slice of nostalgia for me. New to this game is create a pay-per-view event where you can set up your own show and make some dream matches. You can name your event and even edit the arena by messing with the colour or the lights, ring apron and ropes, signs and banners. The options are very limited, but for $19.99 this was an absolute godsend and not something I saw in other wrestling games until much later. I mean, just having the ability to plan matches or even recreate a previous WWF television pay-per-view you saw back in the day was awesome, and I had hours of fun doing this back when I was a kid. You can even save your pay-per-view to a memory card also. Create a Wrestler makes a return after its debut in Warzone, and this time there are loads more options to help you build the perfect superstar. Everything from body type, hair, clothing and movesets can be toggled with, and you can even adjust the length or colour of clothing as well. As you can see, I spent a lot of time trying to create a purple and white masked bloke, and there are a lot of possibilities here, and that allows more artistic blokes and birds to create established stars not in the game, or even some original ones. Wowee, my tiny mind is just blown away by the huge amount of ways you can play this behemoth. There's certainly a lot of options to check out if you fancy a duff 'em up with a CPU or your mates from back in the day. You really wouldn't be complaining about the lack of variety this game has, because this game has seemingly everything. Controlling your chosen wrestler is different to a lot of other wrestling titles, and you move them as normal using the direction buttons. You can grapple with circle, kick with square, punch with the triangle button, and you can block with X. Pressing R2 allows you to run. You can even pull off running clotheslines as well. To perform more complex moves, press start to pause the game and a move list becomes available, which shows certain button commands which have to be entered to pull off the move. To put it simply, it's pretty much like playing the very first Mortal Kombat game, where players must press directions and buttons in a sequence in order to pull off some fancy moves. This does at first feel like a pain, but honestly after a while it becomes a lot of fun and you soon get into it. Again, it can feel boring and alien, particularly if you're just starting out and you have to keep referring to the move list to remember what you can do in each situation. But with constant repetition, and once you get good and remember the moves and you know the positions you need to be in to pull them off, you won't need to rely on the move list as much. Now don't get me wrong, some moves have to be done accurately or else they just won't work, and even I had trouble trying to get some of the finishing moves to work. Also, anyone wondering why finishing moves don't work right away, it's because they can only be pulled off once your opponent's energy bar is red. To be honest, you can actually have some fast and frantic matches here, and in many ways I like the attitude control style because it makes you work for the moves and rewards. It makes you practice and memorise what you're having to do. I think we have all been spoiled with later WWF WWE games, and their ease of controls are great, no doubt, but playing attitude and trying to survive some tough matches whilst also trying to pull off some fancy moves really adds to the tension and sense of accomplishment when you finally pull off a win which may have seemed impossible. Also new to the game is the grapple meter, which shows up in all the wrestlers' energy bars, and if you can pull off a different array of moves, then the box turns blue, allowing you to take control of the match, counter attacks and gain an advantage. There's also a damage meter, meaning that you can do more damage if the crowd are cheering for you. Now the best way that I found to get the crowd on your side is to perform a series of different impressive moves. However, if being popular is not your thing, then you can always just spam the same moves and get by just fine. You and your opponent start off with a green energy bar. The more damage inflicted on you or them, this in turn will decrease to orange, where tiredness starts to kick in, and then it will go to red, which indicates low energy and danger, and there's much more of a chance of getting hit with a finishing move or being pinned. Energy can recover, but bear in mind that the less energy you have, the slower it's going to replenish your meter, and you really need to be out of the way of your opponent for this to occur. Okay, so now let's head into career mode and see what has changed since Warzone. As I mentioned, there are now over 40 WWF superstars to choose from. Everybody from Al Snow, the Big Boss Man, Billy Gunn, China, D'Lo Brown, Dr. Death, Farouk, Gangrel, Goldust, Jerry the King Lawler, the Big Red Machine Kane, Ken Shamrock, Bradshaw, Christian, Mankind, Darren Drozdoff, Edge, Road Dogg Jesse James, Brian Christopher, Jacqueline, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kurgan, Mark Miro. There's even a secret trainer that you can access. He's like one of the characters who actually turned up in Warzone but is actually a hidden fighter in this one. Mark Henry, Mosh, Owen Hart, Paul Bearer, Sable, Sergeant Slaughter, Shawn Michaels, Steve Blackman, Taka Michinoku, The Godfather, The Rock, Headbanger Thrasher, Triple H, The Undertaker, Val Venus and X-Pac. Note that some of the wrestlers I've mentioned here are not available from the start and can be unlocked in career mode or via a cheat mode. Before you start career mode, you need to ensure that you're absolutely happy with whoever you have chosen, because you're going to be stuck with him or her throughout this mode. Career mode has you start from the lowest position on the WWF roster, where you must work your way up the rankings week by week by winning matches on house shows to earn points. And then once you start to get some wins under your belt, you will then start to get booked onto the WWF's flagship shows, i.e. Shotgun Saturday Night, Sunday Night Heat, WWF Raw, and eventually onto a pay-per-view event. And winning these pay-per-views gives you more points. One thing I must mention is that the entrances are far more spectacular when your superstar makes his way to an important show. For example, Kane's pyro and fire doesn't appear in his entrances when he wrestles on house shows, but once you make it to Shotgun Saturday Night, Raw or pay-per-view, Kane will get the flames and more impressive lighting effects. It's a small thing, but it was this attention to detail which I thought was really cool, and really made fighting on these premise shows a lot of fun, as it would have been very easy just to copy and paste. I like the fact that occasionally you can see the match on the Titantron when you're at a TV event, which again was a very well thought out decision. Win or lose a match and you get a stat screen which shows you how much percentage of damage you and your opponent had on each other during the match, which I thought was a nice touch. Now this is why I said you need to be comfortable with who you choose, as career mode can be quite a grind, and once you're in it you can't change your wrestler unless you plan on starting again. So if you're just starting out with attitude, I would take some time to practice a little in exhibition mode, get used to the moves and some of the wrestlers, find out how they play, and try to find a grappler that suits you and has a decent set of moves that you can easily work with. Your first goal here is that you have to work your way up through the rankings to win the European title. This is very easy, to be honest, and I had no problems doing it. I had to win 20 plus matches, and it took me about 2 hours in all for the big red machine to achieve this requirement. After winning the European title, I then had to defend it 5 times, and once I did this, Kane gets to keep the belt and doesn't need to defend it ever again. This I found was an odd decision, but oh well, I guess old Vinnie Mac wants to make the big red machine an undefeated champion. Next, you must carry on and do the same for the Intercontinental title. Now, trying to win this belt is a little harder, and I did really struggle in the middle of my run here. I'm certainly not complaining at this point, as I expected a little bit of challenge here and there, and it made winning the IC belt all the more worth it. After finally getting my hands on it, I had earned the right at last to be in the rankings for the WWF title. However, trying to climb to the ranks of the elite contenders to get a shot was almost nigh on impossible. Now with career mode, I should mention that at various times as you get higher up you will have to partake in grudge matches. These are sprinkled throughout to give you an extra layer of challenge, and for the most part this was a great idea, but in the middle of my WWF title chase, Vinnie Mac decided to give me a 3-on-1 match, and guess who was the one? That's right, Kane had no chance here as the 3 opponents were like a pack of wild hyenas. Add to this that the game engine starts spazzing out whenever 4 wrestlers were on the screen, and as 3 were baying for my blood, I couldn't get away from them, and they proceeded to beat me senseless for what seemed like an eternity. I would have to lose the match and a point to go down the ranking in order to fight a single opponent and win, but the next match I would go to was always the 3-on-1. Now at this point I'd been playing for hours, I was feeling really tired and frustrated and just wanted to give up. However, after licking my wounds and hulking up in the bathroom mirror and giving myself a pep talk, I loaded up a previous save and finally forged a path to the belt. I found the best way to avoid these horrible 3-on-1 matches is to win the Royal Rumble. You see, throughout career mode, win every match and you end up on a pay-per-view. Royal Rumble is just one of these you need to win, as you can skip over these horrible matches completely, and doing this gets you straight to the number 1 spot. Funnily enough, the Royal Rumble doesn't make you eliminate 29 other opponents, it'll actually put you in like the last 11 or so, and if you can beat them all by throwing them over the top rope, then you can compete for the WWF title. After doing this, I shook my fist and gave the game my patented Stone Cold single middle finger salute and was finally ready to have a WWF title match at long last. Interestingly enough, Owen Hart was the champion, but I was able to beat him quite easily. I kind of expected that I would be able to defend the title, but no, that's not it. It's the end. Once you win, and you cannot progress anymore as the game ends abruptly. That's really it, folks. All you do is fight, defend the first 2 belts, and then go on to fight for the WWF title, and that's all she wrote. I really wish there was more to say. I kind of have mixed feelings about this. On one hand, I was relieved because career mode is so long, and a part of me was glad that it was over. Another part of me wanted to at least defend the thing and carry on just like in WWF Warzone, the previous game. Unfortunately, there's hardly any fanfare, just a simple congratulations message. However, on the flip side, you do unlock cheats and hidden wrestlers along the way, so that does kind of make things a little better. My only thoughts on why you can't carry on and defend the title could have been due to memory limitations. As I mentioned earlier, Acclaim, Salt Lake City or Iguana West packed so much onto the CD that perhaps there was just no room to carry on due to the weight of other options and modes available. I guess looking at it from another perspective, if you like longer, more challenging games, then WWF Attitude's career mode will certainly satisfy you. I will say though that you're not going to unlock everything first time round in career mode, so you can at least go back into the game, and after you've done career mode you can choose someone else and do it again, provided you use your same save file, and you can unlock more cheats and characters that way. Although, why would you want to? I'll be honest with you, going through career mode once was enough for me, and after finishing the game I really didn't have any desire to go back in and unlock everyone. It does feel like Attitude's career mode could have used a bit more finesse, but whilst I did find it arduous at times, I have to admit I did have some fun, and fighting the Attitude Era roster brought back a ton of memories for me, so it's not all bad. At the very least, just to be aware, it can get very hard very quickly when you're onto the IC and heavyweight title belts respectively. Despite my issues with career mode, I did find WWF Attitude overall to still be a fantastic package, The graphics are exceptionally good, the action is fantastic, and everyone looks like they should. The moves are motion captured perfectly, and despite wrestlers moving and standing a bit clunky somehow, it kind of works as a wrestling game, and you soon find yourself going from hesitant button basher to becoming almost an expert once you learn the moves. Plus you get commentary from Jerry the King Lawler and Shane O'Mac too, which made my day. It's just a shame that good old JR couldn't provide commentary on this title, as at this time his health wasn't too good, hence why Shane stepped in to help. The wrestlers' entrances, taunts and voice samples for the time was incredible, and whilst primitive now in 1999, this was a first and really adds to the spectacle of being in a WWF ring. I have to say again, the game really chugs when you have 3 or more wrestlers on screen, and some tweaking could have helped mitigate the slowdown somewhat. As I mentioned earlier, the camera zooms out and goes kinda crazy when 3 wrestlers are after 1, and it can be kinda hard to see what's happening, meaning they can get some cheap shots on you. So finally, is WWF Attitude worth playing today? Despite a few issues, I would say a big hearty yes. You have all the Attitude Era wrestlers, tons of game modes, and I can't deny that I had a lot of fun here. It was a trip back to the late 90s for me, and playing the game brought a smile to my face as I reminisced about watching WWF Raw on a Friday night and then watching the huge pay-per-view event early on Sunday morning on Sky Sports. Again, I'm not going to unfairly compare Attitude to later wrestling games. I'm not going to say that Attitude is perfect. As you know, career mode for me did have its problems at times. Play through it once and you'll see exactly what I mean. It's great for a slice of what wrestling used to be, but it can really weigh you down at the same time. However, if you are intent on unlocking everything old school style, then please remember to take regular breaks. Don't do what I did and slog through the game for 4 hours at a time. I think maybe that's another reason as to why I got so sick of career mode, despite its length, but you know what, I'm still going to say it's a good time and well worth your attention today. I think if you can adapt to the control style and get into WWF Attitude, you will find a ton of substance, and the game's a real blast in multiplayer mode too. So if you fancy a wee dose of nostalgia, then grab yourself a copy of WWF Attitude and relive the glory days of the WWF WWE. Thank you so much. I'm off now to wrestle a few pints off my best mate, and I will see you next time for another Retro Pack review. Take care.